If you live in California, you may have noticed that your utility bills, gas and electric, have more than doubled in the last 2 years. Well, I've got some even worse news for you. They're about to double again, but there's something you can do to fight that and prevent it from happening. I'm Carl DeMaio, chairman of Reform California, and I want to talk to you about why are California electric and natural gas utility rates so high, and why the rest of the country, if you don't live in California, why the rest of the country should be taking note, because the electric and gas rates across the country are also projected to increase if new policies are implemented. Let me break down what's going on in California and then warn the rest of you who might live in other states about what you need to look out for. In January of 2023 in California, Californians opened their natural gas bills and they were shocked, terrified. They saw that the bill had, in some cases, doubled, in many other cases, even tripled what they were paying the preceding year. Now, at the time, the media in California swung into action. They're all liberal. The media outlets are all liberal. And they said, well, it's because of a natural gas disruption. That's not true. Well, it's partially true. And let me explain. You see, yes, we did have a lot more demand for natural gas across the United States in December and early January because temperatures were slightly colder than usual. We also saw in El Paso, Texas, a maintenance problem created a disruption in one of the natural gas pipelines in that state. But if those forces were behind the tripling of rates in California, why didn't we see a doubling and tripling of rates nationwide? Rates did go up slightly, but not the way they went up in California. And therein lies the California problem. You see, California rates went up because of California politicians and the mandates that they've imposed on the gas and electric utility companies here in our state. And those mandates are something nationally known as the Green New Deal. That's right. While we talk about a Green New Deal in Washington, D.C., which is an extremist, costly, high regulation approach to energy policy, in California, they've already implemented the Green New Deal over the past 10 years. And as a result, Californians are paying the highest rates for electricity and gas 24/7, 365 days a year. And so when you look at what's going on in California with the doubling and tripling of rates, if we see America embrace a Green New Deal, you're going to see your rates double and triple. And I've got bad news for Californians. The rates are not done increasing. In fact, we project a doubling or tripling of rates in the next 3 to 5 years for electricity and gas. In February of 2023, as the media in California was going out trying to, convince the public in California that you shouldn't blame politicians, you need to blame the greedy utility companies, I asked the Transparency Foundation, a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization, to study the actual rates for California utility companies. And I said, not only study the rates and find out why the rates were set the way they were, but look at the profit margins of utility companies and compare them to utility companies nationwide. You can get a full copy of that report in the comment section below of this video. We'll put it in there, but also go to thetransparencyfoundation.org. Here's what the report found. First and foremost, when you take a look at California's normal electric and gas rates, when there's not a supply disruption like you saw in 2023 in January, in 2022, Californians were forced to pay 67% higher rates for electricity per kilowatt hour and 30% higher rates for natural gas than the rest of the country. And so this is very important for you to understand that Californians are paying a far more expensive rate than the rest of the country. The question is why? California has solar and wind and geothermal. Why is it in California that our electric rates are so much higher? Well, guess what we found? $4.5 billion in hidden state taxes added to California bills. Now, we all know California is a high tax state, okay? It's the butt of jokes. The liberal politicians in California can't resist always applying more and more taxes to everything that we buy out in California. But the 4.5 billion is only part of the puzzle, only part of the reason why our rates are higher in California. The other driver of higher costs, and is really the main driver of higher costs, are the climate change mandates and regulations under California's Green New Deal that have been implemented over the past 5 to 10 years. It's important to note that when you look at the rates for electric and gas, that California really no longer has private utility companies. The rates that your local utility company will charge you, like PG&E or SDG&E or Southern California Edison, Southern California Gas, the companies are not allowed to set their own rates. They must present every year in advance a budget to the California state politicians on the Public Utilities Commission. So the government of the state of California actually approves the rates. California politicians also approve the profit margin. So when people say in politics in California that you can blame the utility company for being greedy or charging too much profit, remember, the utility companies don't have the legal ability to set their own rates. That's all done by the politicians. And this is a scam that the liberal media in California really doesn't want to focus on because, hey, if the politicians are setting the rates, then you should blame them when your bill doubles or triples. Also, you need to know that the profits of utility companies in California are capped. The profit margin is actually approved by the politicians through the PUC, the Public Utilities Commission. And we took a look at benchmarking the profit margins of California utility companies versus the national average. So Edison Electric Institute in 2021 put out a study that showed that the average profit margin for utility companies nationwide was 17.1%. It's a pretty good return. Well, California utility companies are all below the national average. PG&E, 14.88, Southern California Edison, 6.2, Pacific Gas and Electric, 0.67. Now, the profit being lower, well, what would explain then the higher rates? If it's not price gouging by the companies, what explains it? Well, take a look at the Green New Deal. We are being forced in California to pay higher rates because the cost of buying utility, the cost of exploring and pumping natural gas, the cost of providing those services are all made much higher by government mandates and regulations. And there are a few that you can look at. For example, there are restrictions on supply. When you constrict the supply of electricity from carbon-based forms of energy, you then force utilities to go buy more expensive energy sources. So all these renewables, solar and wind, and I'm not against renewables, I'm an all of the above energy guy. But when you force the utility to buy more expensive electricity that comes from solar or wind, those costs are then passed on to the ratepayer in the form of higher per kilowatt hour prices. And so what we're telling these utility companies through government mandate is that you're not allowed to go out and competitively bid and shop around to get the lowest price energy. You have to buy the highest price energy. And those mandates are actually increasing. There's a renewable portfolio standard that California politicians have imposed on utility companies. And so they say you have to buy at least X percent of your energy from the renewable categories, and you cannot buy more than X percent of energy from the more affordable, cheaper energy sources. So when you restrict the supply of energy, electricity, or the supply of natural gas by banning exploration or drilling or pumping, you're going to make the commodity price much higher. And so the commodity prices being higher is the first big factor. The second factor is California actually taxes carbon-based fuel. That's right. They have a carbon tax in California called cap and trade. And so whenever you use oil or gas, or you use any sort of carbon-based electricity, you now have the utility companies having to pay a tax, and that tax is embedded in the rate that the utility ratepayers are paying. And then finally, there's actually additional charges on top of the rates, the inflated price of these electric sources and natural gas sources, in the form of these hidden taxes and fees that are all climate driven. So, for example, in California, we are charging a hidden tax on ratepayers so that they can subsidize new energy efficient windows for their neighbors, or to subsidize the transition from a gas power stove to an electric powered stove or heater or furnace. We also are paying for people's solar panels and providing favorable rates for solar. Again, those charges, those taxes inflate the cost of utilities in California so that those funds then can be diverted to the politicians' favored energy sources. Now let me give you the bad news. When you add up all of these climate change mandates, what we're finding is that about 60% of the cost of gas is inflated by the climate change mandates in California, and about 80% of electricity rates are inflated by the climate change mandates. So it is all self-imposed in California. The politicians are causing us to pay higher rates. Let me go back real quick, though. Remember that gas supply spike in January of 2023? That, the media said, oh, it was because of colder temperatures. Oh, in El Paso, there was a snafu with a pipeline. Well, according to the U.S. Energy Information Agency, they put out an analysis of why rates for natural gas in January 2023 went higher. They did note that there were colder temperatures than expected. They also noted that El Paso pipeline. But they then cited, in particular, California for having low storage of natural gas reserves. You know about the Strategic Petroleum Reserve for gasoline or oil that we have in America? Well, every state should have a natural gas reserve. California's reserve, though, was down by 60% in the past 2 years. Why is that? Well, we saw it coming back in 2021. The politicians told the utility companies not to invest in natural gas supply reserves. They said, don't bother spending money on any of that because we're going to ban natural gas in the next 15 years. And so it won't be profitable. It doesn't make sense for you to invest. So in June of 2021, Pacific Gas and Electric decided to cancel $5 billion in natural gas storage investments. Let me read to you from Standard & Poor's analysis done in March of 2022. They warned us about this. Quote, because of a declining outlook for gas demand in California. Okay, consumers are not going to demand gas any less. It's not like it gets warmer during the winter. It's not like we don't use our stoves as much. No, the declining gas demand is because politicians are about to ban natural gas. Quote, it made financial sense for PG&E to exit commercial storage of natural gas rather than upgrade its storage facilities at a cost of nearly $5 billion over a 20-year period. Instead, PG&E now only maintains enough storage to balance its own system, supplemented by injection and withdrawal capacity from independent storage providers. It goes on to say that gas storage has become less valuable in California as PG&E and the other utilities read the writing on the wall because California politicians want to ban natural gas. Now, about these natural gas bans, Joe Biden proposed a natural gas ban, banning gas-powered stoves in early February of 2023. Everyone was in an uproar. People mocked him, and so the proposal was quietly rolled back. But in California, the natural gas ban is already underway. City of San Diego, City of San Francisco, and 30 other cities in California run by Democrats have banned natural gas appliances in all new construction, and San Diego and San Francisco are looking to impose a retrofit on existing homes and buildings. That retrofit, by the way, would kick in 2027 for San Francisco, in 2033 or 2035 for San Diego. That would require every homeowner to remove any gas appliance, your stove, your heater, your furnace. All those things would have to be removed and replaced with electric appliances. Less efficient, by the way, from an energy standpoint. It defies any environmental or conservationist logic when you remove gas stoves or gas appliances from homes, because gas in the home recoups about 98% of the energy value of the gas being used. If you use gas and convert it to electricity and then send it into homes, you only get roughly 45% of the energy value of the gas. It's very inefficient. It used to be that environmentalists said waste not, want not, but that's not what we're doing in this Green New Deal in California. And so the natural gas ban in California is well underway. And as a result, those utilities are exiting the natural gas market and not investing in backup supplies. That's why in January 2023, there was a massive spike. Because in California, we didn't have the same reserves that other states had to soften the blow to ratepayers. Now, what is truly galling about this is that Governor Gavin Newsom knows all of this. The Sacramento politicians in the state Senate, the state assembly who make the policies, they know all of this. They know that they caused this crisis. They know that they have spiked your rates. But when the rates spiked in January and February of 23, what did Gavin Newsom do? He gaslighted you on gas prices. He went in front of the cameras and said, I'm calling for a federal investigation to find out why the utility companies raised the rates. Again, the media didn't even do its job and let people know that, well, the rates are set by the politicians. And, well, if you take a look at Standard & Poor's, they even said this is what was going on, that they were having utility companies withdraw from the gas market. By the way, PG&E actually cites the impending ban on natural gas appliances as driving rate increases for electricity and gas throughout the state. According to its 2023 rate case submitted to the Public Utilities Commission, PG&E writes, quote, numerous cities have adopted ordinances prohibiting gas appliances in new construction. The projected decline in throughput may lead to a declining base of core customers who will pay for our gas system costs, with rate increases needed to cover the gap. When you take a look at those rate increases, we're talking about doubling and tripling within the next 2 to 5 years for natural gas. Now, there are a number of other programs that have been added to your utility bills in California, like charges for wildland fire programs, when in fact, the California politicians have a dysfunctional approach to dealing with wildland fires, or unnecessary regulatory costs because the state of California duplicates regulations that are imposed already by the federal government on utility companies, or the fact that California politicians, by choking the supply of electricity within our own state, have forced utilities now to go buy power from neighboring states like Nevada and Arizona, as far away as Texas. We are now buying electricity and then transporting that electricity across wires, across long distances. Now, you may not know this if you don't know a lot about the energy markets or how to transport kilowatt hours of electricity. But when you transport electricity across long distances, you actually have to use energy to do that. In other words, you lose about 30 to 50% of the energy value when you buy from Texas or when you buy from a faraway place. So in other words, we're forcing Californians to have to buy more electricity than they actually receive. Again, all because of the Green New Deal. Now, the question becomes, what do we do? What do we do to fix this? And I'll tell you what we have to do. We have to tell these politicians enough is enough. We cannot allow liberals in Sacramento or liberals in Washington through the Green New Deal to force working families to pay the expensive transition costs to a, quote, sustainable, renewable, carbon-free economy. If you take a look at all of the economists' projections for transitioning to a Green New Deal world, we're talking about trillions of dollars of costs. You know those natural gas mandates that I referenced earlier? The National Association of Home Builders commissioned a study asking what would it cost to take the the gas appliances out of a home and replace them with all electric appliances. This was back in 2021. You know what the cost would be per house for a typical house, 1,500 square feet? Over $30,000. And that's in 2021 before we saw record inflation in the past few years. Plus, if you implement a mandate all at once to electrify all the appliances in a house, you're not going to be able to find an electrician to do the work. You're not going to be able to buy enough electric stoves to transition an entire large city like San Francisco or San Diego. You're going to choke the supply chain of those appliances. This makes no financial sense. But here we are, raising rates, doubling and tripling rates on working families, on unsuspecting working families who don't know why the rates are higher. Well, the real reason, because we're forcing them to finance the politicians' vision of a transitioned society. Let's be honest with ratepayers. Let's let them know why their household budget has taken a sucker punch and why we've actually heard from people. I mean, just the number of emails and text messages and calls that I've received from panicked homeowners and renters and parents saying, I wasn't planning on $1,000 electricity bill this month. What do I do? The new choice is to eat or to heat. And no mom or dad should ever have to make that choice. So what we have to do, 3 things. Number 1, we've got to raise awareness that this scam, and I call it a scam because that's what it is, this scam is actually happening. And so I urge you to go to the Transparency Foundation website, thetransparencyfoundation.org, and share the report that's up there on electricity and gas rates in California. Second, at Reform California, we're leading the charge to target bad politicians who support the Green New Deal. I call it the greedy New Steel, who support those policies. And we want to make this an issue in their upcoming campaign. We want to throw some of them out of office. And the only language a politician speaks is when one of them gets thrown out of office. Then suddenly they start to understand the voice of the people. And so go to reformcalifornia.org and click under our campaigns, and you'll find a campaign to block electric and gas utility rate hikes. You'll also find a campaign to stop the forced conversion from natural gas appliances to electric appliances, the natural gas ban. And third, we need you to share this video. Because I'll just be really blunt, the liberal media in California, they're not doing their job. They're not letting you know why the rates are going up for electric and gas utilities. So please click like and subscribe on the video and on the channel. Subscribe to the channel, click like on the video, share the video, pound that notification button so that you can continue to stay informed as we shine a light on what's going on in California. And for those of you who are lucky enough not to be paying these high rates in California, a word of warning. If Congress adopts the Green New Deal, you too will be forced to pay these rates. So you need to be on the watch for these ideas coming to your state legislature or to the U.S. Congress for national policy. Sound off in the comment section below, by the way. Let me know if you live in California, what is your average bill for electricity or gas? And if you live in other states, I know this is going to be really mean, but why don't you share what you're paying on an average month for electricity and gas? Let's start seeing some of the comments below And I think that really will show the dramatic difference in cost of living on utilities between Californians and the rest of the country. Let's fight. Let's take back California. Let's prevent this disaster from happening in America. Thanks for watching. Help us break through the censorship of the liberal media by liking this video, sharing it with your friends, and subscribe to my YouTube channel.